I love it.
But I love it.
Chris Voss uses, and this uses psychology, he uses a one-sentence email, nothing else. Have you given up on this deal? Have you given up on this deal? Is a 7-word email. Now, he is very big on this. Nothing before it, nothing after it. Don't start with, hey, just checking in. That's lame. That's filler. No one gives a shit. Don't ever write, I hope this email finds you well. That is the stupidest ass thing to put in an email. When people say, I hope this email finds you well, I delete it immediately without reading what's next.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Matthews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
It's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
Ian, you son of a bitch.
Frankie, what's going on, buddy?
What's the good word?
Well, I'm glad that you showed up to talk to me today and didn't ghost me on this. You were on time, you were pleasant, and you fulfilled your end of the bargain. I'm proud of you.
As per the usual, I was tremendous.
Not as per usual. If you recall, as listeners will recall, Frank was 25 minutes late to our last session and acted like it was nothing.
19.
Frank with his, if I send a text message, I can be as late as I want because I'm so important.
Correct.
You are a very important person.
It doesn't work with you or my wife.
Frankie, this is a kind of a brutal market from a real estate perspective. You and I both talk to folks in real estate everywhere, both on the resale market and industrial. I work with a number of home builders, and one of the most common things I'm hearing from executives and sales reps is sales reps are getting ghosted. When a manager goes to say, what's the reason why they chose not to use us? It's a very frustrating thing because sales reps are saying, I don't know. They just stopped responding, or they didn't come in for the follow-up appointment I had, or I can't get them to text me or call me back. They're not picking their phone up. And I mean, this is as old as time, but I think it's probably more prevalent today because less people talk in general, more people text, more people ghost in general. But I got to imagine every week you have your sales call where you talk to your sales team who are talking to leads they've been following up on. I have to imagine this is pretty prevalent in your line of work too.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, we deal with this every single day. People wanting to ghost us, and especially because of the nature of how we work with it, right? If someone goes into a model home with someone that you're going to purchase a home from, it's a willing person, unless their Tesla just drove them there. Like, it's a willing person who walked into that model. In my line of work, we're usually we cold call a lot, and we just kind of farm. So in our world, it's the on-ramp is very different. It's not always a willing conversation. So secondary and third party or third time follow-up is very easy to not get a response.
When you were in sales, can you think of a particular customer that ghosted you that was memorable, that was particularly painful or embarrassing?
Oh, completely. So my favorite thing about sales is if you ask the right questions, you can control an entire process. And you can use other people's words to kind of close them on themselves, right? If you listen properly and with intent and you ask the right questions, oh, well, you told me that it was this, this, and this, or your kid didn't have their own bedroom and that was the reason you needed to get a house. Has that changed? And if you do it right, it works 100% of the time. My least favorite thing about sales is you can do everything right and you can still not get the sale. So this is quite old, this story. Early 2000s, Ryan Holmes didn't actually buy laptops for us. So I used the laptop that my college made me buy while I was still in college. And I would go to like Staples or one of the...
Hold on. Just shout out on this because Frank went over this fast. Frank is not 75 years old. This was like 2005 when we gave our sales reps computers. When I showed up in 2005, they were celebrating that they were no longer writing contracts on like carbon copies. Press hard because we need 3 copies of this. Like, you're not 80. This was NVR waited like 10 years longer than every other home builder.
2002 or 2003.
Yes. That is wild though, how late they were in giving computers to sales reps.
So I had to use the computer that I bought in college. I remember I worked all summer to save $3,500. How much it cost to go to Staples and buy a fucking laptop. That's one. 2, I had to buy my own printer because Ryan Holmes wouldn't let me have a printer. but they wanted me to send out follow-up pieces, but you couldn't use a printer to print it for you. You had to do it yourself on a non-existing computer, non-existing printer, all things you couldn't expense.
Yes. Yes.
So I would stop on my way every month and I would send like 100. I think I got 100 pieces of paper. So I would usually screw up one or two and I would end up with 98 of these follow-up pieces that I would send. And I would just get a ream of paper. And if it was Halloween, it'd have pumpkins. If it was Thanksgiving, it'd have pumpkins. And if it was Valentine's Day, it would have something on it. So I have this customer that I work with and the meeting goes awesome. Now, they were really a kind of a weird customer for me. They lived south of where my model home was, and no one lived south because you needed a house that was more expensive to move into this. You didn't move from where the house is traded at, 70 cents on the dollar compared to where I was. But they're like, look, we can afford it. We've got promotions. We really want it. We're going to be back in touch. And I was like, okay, great. So I went for my levels of commitment. Let's get a contract. Let's go for a lot hold. Couldn't get any of those things. They were like, well, we'll be back in touch. 17 months goes by. I shit you not, 17 months. I go, they just walk in my model. And I've been calling them for months, years. Like, what happened? Any guesses?
I don't have a guess.
Where have you been? She goes, Iraq. That doesn't sound like a layover on the way to Cleveland. She goes, no, I was deployed for 15 months. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. She goes, nope, this is post 9/11, war on terror. We're over there. She was there for those many months. She literally, Ian, goes, here are your 17 pieces of mail. I kept them all. I'm buying this house.
That is awesome. So she got them all at once when she got back.
Her husband must
see
have
that you
filed
never
them all.
gave up. You just kept going
I kept
after
mailing
it.
to him because I'm like, everything tells me these people are buyers.
That is such a cool story. So I'll choose one from a ghosting perspective. I used to get ghosted all the friggin' time when I was a commissioned sales rep because I wasn't a really good salesperson. But my first 5-on-4 group started with one consulting gig. I went in and did a little bit of work for a small business in the medical world in the Midwest. And, did some work, did some coaching, did a little help. And the CEO wanted me to come in and help build up their management team, train them how to lead, train them how to manage, train them how to do a lot of things that I've been doing at NVR. So this was like, I don't know, maybe 6 months after I left NVR. So I had to go form a business, get a contract, get an LLC. The more I got into the scope and talking to the CEO, the more I started realizing like, holy shit, it's a full-time job. This was before Zoom. This was 2018. This is before you had video calls. I was going to be on an airplane all the time. I was going to be in hotels all the time. And I had just left NVR because I was in hotels and airplanes all the time. So I was looking at this like, holy shit, you're trading one exhausting, all-encompassing job for a contract doing a lot of the same things. So I remember when I was going through this, Frankie, I was talking to you about it. And I'm like, how do I price this? And I started off probably low versus what I would do today. But I remember talking to you and you were like, well, how much value are they going to get? Forget like what your hourly rate should be or what you want to make. What's the value? And we started talking about it. I was like, well, it's a growing company. It's a small company. They've got a lot of problems. So it's significant. I think I could bring them millions of dollars of value. In fact, I'm convinced I would bring them millions of dollars of value if they listen to me and if they do what's right. I know I could. And so you were like, okay, well, price accordingly. I remember we had this conversation and I just kept messing with the spreadsheet because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, how long is this going to take me? This scope is, man, I'm committing to a lot here. Holy shit, this might be 8-9 months. Long story short, by the time I got done with it, I priced this thing at like $750,000. I can't even say that out loud because it was the first ever proposal I wrote for 5-on-4 group. It had $750,000 on it, kind of like fixed price. And I was looking at it like, okay, if you were hiring an executive from the outside, I would want equity, I would want a salary, and I'd want a bonus for performance. That's about like if I were going to join this company long term, that's kind of what I'd want. So I'm going to go all in. I'm going to give you millions of value. That's the price. So I go through all of this with the CEO and the CFO. I present all of it. I pitch it. It's like an hour meeting. And At the end, I roll out the price, and there's no videos, so I couldn't see their faces, but there was just a pause, and then the CEO's like, "Okay, yeah, it's a little more than I was thinking, but I think we're going to get tremendous value out of this." And I was like, "Okay, well, when do you want to start?" I asked some closing questions. I can send this over in a proposal. Asked a few closing questions, got through it, sent it, and then didn't hear anything. Crickets, just crickets. And what I later found out as CEO, right? He didn't have full equity in the company. He had some people that he had to talk to. The CFO was keeping an eye on dollars and cents quite a bit. And so I tried everything to like re-engage, get back in, every trick in the book, but ultimately I overshot for sure. And to be honest, I was sort of relieved. I'd followed up a lot on it, but I was like,
I don't really want this.
you priced that for that reason, for a reason, because you probably didn't really want to go all in this shortly after leaving NVR. My very first proposal with 5-on-4 group got the big ghost. So when people ghost, I guess the question is, Frankie, you coach salespeople every day. When someone's getting ghosted, is it because they're rude or is there something else going on?
So what I'm going to answer to this is actually something a little bit different. And I'm going to talk about getting ghosted, or like how to not get ghosted in a model, because I think it's more relevant. And then I can answer your specific question a little bit differently. So what I learned when I was in a model is the 7 levels of commitment. And the 7 levels of commitment, the best is a contract. So
Is that from Dante? Dante's Inferno? The 7 levels of hell of ghosting?
I don't know who taught it to me. I think it was actually somebody a lot less formidable than Dante. It was somebody that probably had man tits and smoked cigarettes when nobody was looking. Ryan Holmes Salespeople. And when I was in my 20s,
what does man tits have to do?
He's not the best color man in the league for nothing.
God, that's amazing. 2 or 3 times an episode, you rip something out. That's fantastic. That's great.
A minute ago,
I can't get it out of my head now. I'm thinking of the
before we had this call,
Fight
he
Club
was like,
man
"What do
booth.
you think about the Dolphins coach?" I'm like, "I mean, he's doing this with a quarterback that's shorter than you." And he goes, "Jesus, I think those are shots across the back."
Yeah, I'm taking strays for no reason. I'm asking a polite question about the Dolphins. You got to rip a freaking short joke on me.
The best short joke ever, though, was when you were up on stage and Kenny just walked across the entire meeting. He goes to like some closet and just Ian's talking, and there's like this loud sound of somebody dragging something. He drags a step ladder and hands it to Ian and goes, "Here, get on this, so you'll be taller than your wife and everybody in the back can see you."
Klausmacher was such an asshole. He's the only guy I could never really get at those meetings.
So well delivered. Like, what a great move.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, everyone is anxiously dying to know what the 7 levels of sales
Somewhere
are.
between man tits and a step ladder. All right, let me go backwards. What I learned in sales when working in a model home is the 7 levels of commitment. The best of the 7 levels of commitment is contract. It means you got your deal done. Right.
Yeah.
So if you try and you've earned the right to ask for a contract and you don't get a contract, the next best thing you can get is an appointment to sign a contract. So that's 2. If you can't get an appointment to sign a contract, you go to 3, which is a lot hold, which is meaningless, but it gives people a little bit of something. And if they won't do a lot hold, then you get a follow-up, an in-person follow-up appointment. And if you can't get an in-person follow-up appointment, you get a over-the-phone follow-up appointment. And if you can't get that, then you ask for permission to call. And if you can't get that, you have an acknowledgement that you're going to call. Those are your 7, right? So the best is we're going to write this thing up. And the worst is, well, I'm going to do my job and I'm going to call you.
So real quick on that, I don't remember it being 7, but I was sort of trained the same way. And really the way I was trained is never turn down a contract if they'll write today for an appointment tomorrow. Never turn down an appointment, for a call tomorrow. So like each one of your levels, you always push to move up the chain as fast
100%.
as you can. If they will write today, you take the order. You don't say like, well, let's set up another appointment. You take the highest level you can, or your potential of getting ghosted goes up. If you can close, you frickin' close. And I think in this market, that's more important than ever.
100%. If they're in front of you and they're willing and you have those things satisfied, you go for it. So I'll pivot to what I do today, which is a little bit different, right? My highest closer closes at somewhere between 50 and 60%, which is absurd.
That's
People
really high conversion rate.
Way high, way high. The average in our business is like 22%, but my guess is that's bullshit because most people don't know how to actually take order. They don't know how to track it.
Yeah, new home sales, if you're in double digits, you're doing great today.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now her cancellation rate is like 15%. It's triple anybody else's. Like nobody cancels when they sell us a house, but hers, she works on emotion and she really gets people all lathered up. It's kind of like Tony Robbins. He gets you in the state and he closes you. You should buy this $100,000 training program, and you do it when you're there and you can't get out of it. So you have to kind of understand like what's happening in the process, and then you have to understand the backlash accordingly. I have other salespeople who don't close at a 50 to 60% rate. They'll close in the 30% rate, but their cancellation rate is 0. So like you have to understand like how to close really hard, and you need to really kind of work on that. And then past the closing hard, you need to close for the next thing, and you need confirmation. So if you're not going to close on the sale, you close on the next best thing to the sale. And if you can't close on the next best thing, you work yourself down. But what you do is you get commitment. Okay, I realize we're not the right house for you. I do realize that this isn't something that we're even close on time frame wise, but I'm going to put you on my direct mail list and make sure I follow up. And if something changes in your situation, you're going to get a piece of mail from me. That's like 8. I didn't even mention it. Like that's the worst. But what you want to do is you want to have some kind of commitment that you can give them, that they know that yes, we're going to do something. The reason you go for the commitment is this. Per our conversation, when you were in my model, when I saw you 4 days ago, I promised you this phone call. You promised me you would get back to me. I've got some great news. This is how you get ghosted less. There's some kind of a commitment up front, and you deal with it up front. You lock it in, and then you say, well, when I call you, we'll have a conversation. And nobody's going to tell you to your face no. So that's kind of the upside. And that's, now it doesn't always work, but your chances of being ghosted are significantly less if you do 2 things. You get commitment up front, and then when you call, it's not, hey, I'm following up. That's bullshit. You're going to get ghosted. It's soft. I have something of importance and value per our conversation that you told me to be interested in hearing, and I'm ready to deliver it when you call me back. Very, very different kind of a thing.
Love all of that. So I think there's leaks in your process if you're getting ghosted, right? So you've missed something. If you got ghosted, it's not because the person's rude. It's because, you
haven't done your job.
You missed something. And the 4 leaks that I think are, 1, your follow-up sucks. It's either not. Frank just mentioned he sent 17 pieces to this lady's house, not knowing she was in Iraq. That's awesome. That is uncommon follow-up and not surprising knowing Frank. He's a tenacious guy, right? So he took it as a challenge. I'm going to keep coming after you.
My sales manager at the time did tell me, I'm sure you did something wrong.
Amazing. But it could also be it's not just about how many times you did, it's the speed of which you do it. So with your people, how big are you on speed of follow-up?
So if you ask me, like, what are the key metrics in my business, and this is nuts, but these are key metrics. We have 2 very important rules. We have the 72-hour rule, and we have the 12-second rule. I'll go 12 seconds first. 12 seconds is the amount of time that you need to be on the call before you can possibly get it to a meaningful conversation. So basically, you need to convince somebody not to hang up on you. In addition to that, the other side of it that you have to really pay attention to is the 72-hour rules. I don't set an appointment that's more than 72 hours into the future, because the cancellation rate goes from 10-15% to 50%. So we do all of those things there. So we really kind of manage that part of the funnel a lot more than we do this part of the funnel. But what we make sure of is that the biggest thing that people tell us, Ian, is I'm not a seller for 12 months. In your world, I'm not a buyer for 12 months. That's a blow off. And people change their minds. So we had somebody this week who told us that they weren't going to sell for 12 to 18 months. But we follow up with them every 3 to 5 weeks with regularity because people change their mind. Hey, you told us you weren't going to sell for 12 to 18 months. Just following up with you to make sure that you haven't changed your mind, or nothing's come about to change your time frame. Oh, something did change my time frame. I'm ready to sell now. So those are the kind of things you have to look at. What the really hard thing with follow-up is nobody tells you, call me once a week, call me once a month. And if they do tell you that, they don't know it's that formulated in fact. So you have to kind of look at things in buckets and think of what type of a sequence should this person be in? And then when do I know that I need to not really listen to them and kind of break their rules because things change?
Love it. So that's the first one. You're too slow. Second is your presentation is more about you and not about their problem. You're focused on the features, right? This is feature dumping. This is going on and on about all the little details of your product when really the customer didn't felt like you listened
Prioritize them.
or really didn't care in the first place. The third is you kind of just sound like you've got commission breath. You're desperate, like, please call me back, or you lower your status. We talked about status a couple of weeks ago on one of our episodes, and you're overtly focused on you as the salesperson. And then the fourth is you just do a lousy job of controlling the next step. And Frank's 7 layers from Dante with the man tits guy that he was talking about earlier, regardless of which of the 7 the customer's ready for, you still have to control getting to that step. Like if you can't get 3, you're trying to get 4. You're always closing and controlling the next step, right? Instead of a let me know or hey, let's catch up a little later on this. That's lousy control. You want to be able to say, okay, when are we following up? How are we following up? What medium? And do you agree? And we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that when I get through a little bit later in this deck.
I'm going to say this really fast. So with the 4 steps you just talked about, I think they're all really critical, but I think like your sales breath and your other things, I think it all is a product of something very different. If you're suffering from 1 through 4 on this list, you have not properly defined who your buyer or your seller is, who your customer is. And if you can physically define who your customer is, you can then achieve your goals because you're not focusing on 100. You might be focusing on 10 leads or 15 leads, and you can follow up with so much more precision with that.
You're fishing in the wrong pond.
Correct. I was in sales for 30 months and I exceeded quota 28 of those 30 months in a model home because I didn't focus on 100 people that walked through the door. I focused on 8 to 15 of them every month with tenaciously. I wasn't confident enough in myself to back that up to my manager at the time, but that's what success looks like.
I love that. And so I like this. Brandon Mulrenan's got this framework. He calls it the pact. So P stands for permission. Get the prospect to ask you to follow up. A, agreement. Get the prospect to define the when of the follow-up. C, confirmation. Give them an exit. Give them an out. So this is a little bit like what Frank was talking about. If the 8 to 15, if this customer didn't feel like they were in that 8 to 15, Frank would give them a polite out to not waste each other's time. That's what the confirmation piece is. And then T is terms. Actively agree on a backup plan for what happens next. And so what typical people do, the mistake they make is, hey, I'll follow up with you in a few weeks, or I'll follow up with you in a few days. That's forced. The customer hasn't agreed to it. You're telling them something without them saying yes or no. And so it doesn't feel good. And what the customer will say is, cool. Sounds great. Yeah, follow up with me in a few weeks. They're not saying they're going to answer the phone. They're not saying they're interested. They're not saying that they want that. They're just saying whatever because they don't feel like arguing with you versus asking permission and then asking what time they would like to. So instead, like, would it make sense for us to revisit this conversation some point in the future? Or would that be a waste of time for you? You're trying to, these all kind of play off the same psychology. You're trying to get to a no. You're trying to get them to say, no, that wouldn't be a waste of time. I'm actually interested in that. Great. That sounds good. When should we follow up? Now I'm asking you, I'm asking for permission, but you're the one setting the date. So I'm giving you control in this process instead of me saying, I'm going to call you back. I'm going to follow up. I'm giving you an out in this kind of situation. And then on the second piece, on agree. So again, when you get back to this, the process says, yeah, let's do it. Prospect says, I want to revisit this. I want to do it. Okay, great. I would love that too. When would you like me to reach out? When can we set up the next time? Again, I am the psychology. This is the law of consistency bias. I am allowing you the chance to set the date and the time, and you will be more likely to honor it.
Hey, hold on a second. For our radio audience, I want to say something real quick. Ian gets paid a lot of money to do this, and he's built a beautiful, beautiful sales deck. If you're listening to this over audio only, go to YouTube and watch this. There's really gorgeous slides. It lays all of this out. Ian's doing a good job of keeping this brief for the call, but this is really well laid out. Go watch it.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate you. So next on that, the script after that, this is where you give them one last chance. So I love what Frank said. Out of 100 people that came in, 8 to 15 were his focus. He spent more time we talked about this another one with credit, right? Do you have good credit or great credit? And they said good credit. Frank was like, okay, I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time with you. You probably don't qualify for a home here. So this is your chance to give them one last chance, right? Listen, I hope I'm not being the annoying salesperson that is always following up. If you want to put it to rest, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Again, the psychology, I'm being disarming a little bit, but I'm also giving you a chance. I'm giving you control. And this is forcing you again to say, no, I want to follow up, right? So again, I'm trying to get a no out of you because a no forces us to have a serious discussion. And then, the final piece of it is just set the time, set the day, be very clear. And then the last thing of this is, I love this question. This comes from Mo Rennan again. If for some reason I get your voicemail, what should I do? I love that question because now we're getting details, right? This is an absolute trial close, right? So I am getting permission to text you. I mean, like some people say, don't leave me a voicemail. I don't really listen to them. Send me a text. Okay, cool. Now I can remind you, hey, you had told me to send you a text if I got your voicemail, or you had told me you'll call me right back. I can remind you of that conversation because I didn't tell you that. You are the one that told me this is how we should operate and that you want me to follow up in this way in the future.
All right, hold on a second. I want to say a couple things. So when I was at Ryan Homes, there was a lady who won Best Sales Rep of the Year. And she was very good. She was in a community that had great volume, so it made sense that she sold a lot. But it was a product that Ryan Homes didn't sell, but her volume was nuts, right? Like she sold, like a normal sales rep would sell like 24 to 36 houses a year, and this lady sold like 100. So It was crazy.
Yeah.
But it was meant to be volume. But what was fascinating to me is I worked in the same neighborhood as her, so I was the project manager. So we didn't, besides not having computers, we didn't have trailers. So we didn't have anywhere to work. So we would get to work 4 hours before the models opened, and I would use her desk. And on her desk, she had a yellow sticky note on the phone, and it said, always close. This is the best sales rep Ryan Homes had. Yeah. And she was reminding herself to always close. What I'm going to tell you is this. Ian has 4 steps. I'm going to review them. Step 1, gaining permission, the script. Mr. Prospect, would it make sense for us to revisit this conversation at some point in the future, or would that be a complete waste of time? Step 2, the script. Yes, let's revisit this. Okay, fair enough. How should I follow up? Step 3, you get into the script. Okay, I'll give you a call in March. Step 4, so if you don't answer, what do I do? Instead of the yellow sticky note on your phone that says always close, put those 4 fucking things down. Write them down. I'm actually going to take this and make my salespeople put this on their desk. My lady who closes at 50% doesn't do any of this. She doesn't. And she closes at 50% because she's so good at everything else.
So she could be even better.
Right. There's no way in today's Major League Baseball program you're really good unless you have late inning and finally a closer. These are your closers. If you go back through these 4 things and you ask this to 100% of your clients on the way out the door, you're going to know who to follow up with, and you're going to have a process. And what I told you in the very beginning of this episode is my favorite thing about sales is using people's own words against them to achieve your goal of selling. You're asking the 4 most important points on follow-up, and you're doing it up front, and then you're sticking to it and doing it the right way. When you get married, you basically ask your spouse, like, how do you want me to love you? And then you just need to remember what they told you, and you do it that way. This is the same exact process.
Yeah. And one thing that Frank just said there too, you might be a great closer, but if you're a great closer with a high cancellation rate, all anyone really cares about is net sales.
Correct.
That's a pain in the ass to have a high cancellation rate. There's a million reasons why you don't want that, but you might be closing, but people are getting cold feet. Well, that's because you're pushing.
You're skipping steps.
You're pushing, you're skipping steps, and that's why you have a cancellation rate. Get them to close themselves. Get them to say when they want to close, what they want to do. So even in a situation like Frank, where his best salesperson converts really well, but if you could just you don't even need her to convert better. Just get the cancellation rate from 15 to 5. It makes you a lot more money.
Makes sense. Make sure you understand something. At 55 to 60% close rate, I'll take the 10 to 15%. I've done the math.
Yes.
That one works. Now, if I had somebody at 30% that had a 15% cancellation rate, it's a very, very, very different conversation.
Doesn't work. Yeah. So those are the ways that you can keep yourself from getting ghosted. But let's just say you've been ghosted already, and it's going to happen, right? Frank and I just mentioned a couple. It happens to us. We get ghosted. There are some recovery tools that you can use. My favorite is by Chris Voss from Never Split the Difference. If you haven't read that book, if you're listening to this, go get that book. If you're in sales, it's top 5 sales book of all time, and I've read hundreds of them.
And this is what's really cool. Most people take this shit that doesn't belong to them, they just rip it off. Ian actually has sourcing on the bottom right saying who, like, I love it. I'm
sourcing this. This is Chris Voss. I love it.
But I love it.
Chris Voss uses, and this uses psychology, he uses a 1-sentence email, nothing else. Have you given up on this deal? Have you given up on this deal? Is a 7-word email. Now, he is very big on this. Nothing before it, nothing after it. Don't start with, hey, just checking in. That's lame. That's filler. No one gives a shit. Don't ever write, I hope this email finds you well. That is the stupidest ass thing to put in an email. When people say, I hope this email finds you well, I delete it immediately without reading what's next. You put, have you given up on this deal in the subject line, and that's it. Let the phrase do the work. And again, psychology, you are playing off of fear of loss. Humans are more motivated by the fear of losing something than they are the promise of gain. So you're flipping the dynamic. You're kind of admitting, seems like you've given up on this thing. And again, you are trying to get a no. You are trying to elicit a no out of there, right? So if they come back with no, let's find a solution, or sorry, we've moved on. Either one is great, but you have clarity that way. I am trying to use the psychology of getting someone to say, you've misread me. You misread me, right? No, I haven't given up on it. I've just been busy. Another one that I really like is this one's from Marcus Sheridan. This is the permission to close email. So similar to the way Voss does it. In this one, you put in the subject, hey, Frank, I'm assuming you found another solution for so-and-so, right? Or I'm assuming you found another home site that you liked. I'm assuming you found another builder that you've liked, right? You are making an assumption that is likely wrong, right? Or it could be right. And now they can answer however they want to. But again, this is a very non-accusatory, matter of fact, and 2 things can happen. They can say, yep, we've decided to go with Beazer Homes. Or they could say, no, sorry for the delay. I haven't bought anything yet. I've just been kind of waiting because mortgage rates went up. Okay, now I'm back in the game. In one case, I can eliminate you, go back to my 8 to 15, like Frank said. Or in the other case, now we're talking again. I have sparked a debate because I have mislabeled you on purpose to get you to say no to respond to me. The third recovery tool is the integrity checked, right? So this is for if you did the packed process right, where they went through and they told you, we're going to meet this way, here's the delivery, this is when we're going to meet, and here's how I'm going to respond. Now you can kind of say, hey, listen, when we talk, you had mentioned before, that the day to call you was Tuesday, and that if I left you a message, you would respond to a text. And I told you I didn't want to be an annoying salesperson, so I'm getting the feeling maybe you want to go in a different direction. And if you do that, you're reminding them from an integrity perspective, you committed to having a discussion with me. I didn't. You're the one that told me this date, this time, and how you would respond. So I'm just reminding you of that pact. Most people from a psychological perspective like to be known as someone who is a person of their word. They don't like to go back on their word, even if it's something as silly as talking to a salesperson on a certain day and on a certain medium. And then the last one, which I kind of think is funny, this is the Hail Mary, I guess. So if you've tried all these different things, just sort of like a text with a funny meme, right? So any kind of funny meme, you could, there's a funny one with Kevin Hart where it just says, where you at? And that's it. And he's kind of got a funny look on his face. I kind of like that as I've tried everything else, so now I'm just going to make fun of myself a little and drop a GIF or a meme into a text message. This is really, I think you can get a high response rate when you are goofy and playing around a little bit. It's not as formal because all the other ones I sent, they were via email. They were following up on an agreement we had. But, if all of those don't work, get goofy, be silly, do something that kind of makes them laugh, that makes them laugh out a little bit, and calls into question some of the absurdity of where you're stuck. So that, Frankie, is end of my slide deck and the end of my thoughts on ghosting. If you are getting ghosted, my quick summary, it's likely because of two big things, though. Frank said the first one, you are fishing in the wrong pond. You haven't defined your buyer well yet. You're not good at determining whether this is a good fit quickly when they come in or you talk to them on the phone. Your leads are fishing in the wrong place. You're talking to a lot of people that are probably never going to be interested in your product. Or two, you're just skipping too many steps in the process and making the customer feel rushed or feel not heard. And you are feeling like when you're with that customer, you're winning because they're saying yes a lot, but really they're just thinking, I'm going to blow you off later because you don't listen. You talk. Frank, that's all I got on the topic of ghosting.
I'll close quickly with this. One, I've seen people use these headlines on me, which I find hysterical. So I didn't realize they came from books, but I've like, oh, clearly this deal's dead, or clearly you've moved on. Now, if you're going to put that to somebody and someone does engage, change the topic going forward so it doesn't always feel like you're rubbing salt in the wound. You didn't get back to them fast enough. But the other thing with the Kevin Hart meme at the end, sales in a lot of instances comes down to being memorable and being likable. And if people think you're memorable and likable, they'll want to work with you because likability or trust are some of the big things with customers. So if you do stick with I'm following what I told you I was going to do, it shows a level of integrity and it shows that you've actually connected with people. But it's so much easier not to get ghosted if you deliver great value in the beginning. And if you come to terms with the fact that this just doesn't seem like the right fit. In your 20s, when you're trying to sell, or in your 30s, like you think you can convince everybody, but sometimes you can't. So if that's the case, like you just move on and you focus on the right stuff.
And some of you sons of guns that have been following this show have not been giving us 5-star reviews and nice comments on Apple. So we are going to challenge your integrity. Get your ass over there, give us a 5-star review, and send us a note, and we will send you a premium cotton merch Let Me Speak to a Manager t-shirt. Frankie, it was good to see you. I will not ghost you next week. Can't wait to record again.
See you, buddy.
See you, homie.